My name is Daniel Brooks, and for most of my adult life, I believed I had everything under control. I lived alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado, worked remotely as a graphic designer, and kept to myself more than I probably should have. My neighbors knew me as the guy who waved politely but rarely attended block parties or barbecues. Not because I didn't want to connect, I just never knew where to start. But everything changed one bright Sunday morning, the day my neighbor Emma Clark knocked on my door with a worried expression and said 6 simple words. "Daniel, my shower just broke. Help." Emma had moved into the house next door about 3 months earlier. She seemed kind, soft-spoken, and always greeted everyone with a smile, but beyond that, I knew very little about her. Our interactions consisted of quick waves across our driveways or polite exchanges about the weather. So when she knocked that morning, unexpected and slightly flustered, I was surprised. She stood there wearing simple jeans, a pastel sweater, and her hair tied into a loose ponytail. She clutched a small toolbox in one hand and a towel in the other, as if she had rushed straight from the bathroom. "I'm really sorry to bother you," she said. "But I tried tightening something under the shower handle and I think I made it worse. Water won't stop dripping and the sound is driving me insane." I blinked for a second, adjusting to the sudden request. "Ah, sure. I can take a look." Her relief was obvious. "Thank you. I promise it'll be quick. I don't want to ruin your morning." I grabbed my toolkit and followed her next door. I had never been inside her home before, but the moment I stepped inside, I noticed the simplicity and warmth: soft beige walls, framed photos of mountains, and the faint smell of vanilla candles. "Bathroom's just down the hall," she said, guiding me. When we reached the bathroom, I saw the issue immediately. The shower handle was loose, dripping steadily into the tub. "You weren't kidding," I said. "Yeah," she groaned. "It sounds like a faucet trying to torture me." I knelt down, inspected the pipes, tightened a few connections, and after about 20 minutes of focused work, the dripping finally stopped. When I turned the water on again, the flow was steady and strong, no leak, no sputtering. Emma clapped softly like a little kid seeing a magic trick. "You fixed it." I honestly thought I broke the whole thing. "It wasn't that bad," I said, smiling. "You saved me from calling a plumber on a Sunday. They charge triple." We walked to her kitchen, where she insisted on making me tea as a thank you. I tried to decline politely, but she was persistent, and honestly, the warm invitation felt nice. Her kitchen was small but beautifully organized, green plants lining the windowsill, ceramic mugs hanging neatly, a faint breeze drifting through the open window. "So," she said as she handed me a mug, "I don't think we've ever had a proper conversation. You've been my neighbor for months and all I know is that you work on your computer a lot." I laughed. Guilty. I'm a graphic designer. I design logos, websites, things like that. Her eyes lit up. "That's so cool. I'm a third-grade teacher." "That explains the plants and inspirational quote posters," I said, pointing to a colorful frame that read, "Choose joy." She chuckled. Occupational hazard. We sat and talked for nearly an hour. About her students, her recent move from Michigan, her love of hiking. About my work, my family, my odd habit of buying more books than I could ever read. The conversation flowed effortlessly, something I wasn't used to. Eventually, she exhaled deeply and said quietly, "I'm really glad you came over today." I didn't know what to say at first. "I'm glad I could help." But her expression softened in a way that suggested there was more behind her words. I didn't press her then. I figured she'd tell me when she was ready. A few days later, she knocked again, this time holding a bucket of paint. "Daniel, would you maybe want to help me repaint my fence? Only if you're free." And so began a pattern, a wholesome, friendly pattern that slowly changed the shape of my daily life. We spent Saturday afternoons repainting her fence, trimming bushes, cleaning gutters, and fixing things she had been too busy to handle. She wasn't helpless. In fact, she was incredibly capable. But she liked company, and I realized, so did I. One afternoon while painting, she grew unusually quiet. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Of course. She dipped her paintbrush into the bucket, hesitating. "When I moved here, I didn't know anyone. I left Michigan because I needed a fresh start. My engagement ended last year. Not in a dramatic way, just, we grew apart. And I realized I was losing myself trying to fix something that wasn't meant to be fixed." I lowered my brush, giving her my full attention. She continued, "I thought starting over in a new place would be exciting. But it's lonely. Harder than I expected. I didn't think I'd meet anyone who would make me feel welcomed again." Her voice cracked slightly, though she quickly forced a smile. "Emma," I said softly, "you're not alone here. You're part of this neighborhood. And you're my friend." Her eyes lingered on mine. Grateful, steady, warm. "Thank you, Daniel." After that conversation, things changed, not in any inappropriate way, not romantically, but in a deeper emotional sense. We grew comfortable, familiar. We started grocery shopping together, cooking simple dinners, taking weekend walks with her old golden retriever, Max. Every evening at sunset, she'd call out from her porch, "Tea time." And I'd join her, sitting on the steps with warm mugs in hand as the sky turned orange and pink. Our friendship became one of the most grounding parts of my life. One day, she invited me to a neighborhood potluck. I usually avoided such events, but she insisted. "Come on," she said. "You'll be my partner in crime." I reluctantly agreed, but to my surprise, the night was fun. Kids running around, music playing lightly, neighbors telling stories. Emma introduced me to everyone with excitement, almost like she was proud to have me there. By the end of the evening, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. Later that night, as we walked home, she said, "I'm glad you came." "Me too," I admitted. Weeks passed, and our routines became as natural as breathing. Fixing things together, sharing meals, laughing over her students' hilarious classroom stories, and occasionally sitting in peaceful silence. But the moment that changed everything forever happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. A storm had knocked out power in our area. I was lighting candles when someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find Emma, soaked from the rain but smiling softly. My power's out. Yours too, she asked. Yeah, I said. Come in. It's warmer inside. She stepped in, shaking water from her coat. I gave her a towel and made tea on the gas stove. We sat in the dim glow of candlelight, listening to the storm rumble outside. She wrapped her hands around the mug and whispered, "Remember when I told you I moved here to start over?" Yeah, well, I think I finally did. She looked at me with a sincerity that struck deeper than anything before. This place feels like home now. Because of you. I felt the weight of her words settle in my chest, warm, meaningful. I'm glad I could be part of that, I said quietly. Not part, she corrected. A big part. We sat in silence, the comfortable kind, the kind that speaks without sound. The storm eventually slowed, and when she stood to leave, she paused at the doorway. Daniel, thank you. For every little thing. For showing up when it mattered. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't romantic. It was something real and pure. Gratitude, connection, friendship. And just like that, the simple act of helping a neighbor with a broken shower became a turning point in both our lives. Not because anything wild happened. Not because fate swooped in like a movie. But because kindness, small, everyday kindness, has a way of opening doors to new beginnings. Today, Emma is one of my closest friends. We still drink tea at sunset. We still fix things around her house. We still talk about life's troubles and victories. And sometimes we look back on that morning she knocked on my door with a towel in her hand and laugh. Who knew a broken shower would start all this? She jokes. But secretly, we both know it wasn't the shower. It was the moment she asked for help, and the moment I realized helping her helped me too. Because sometimes, everything changes the moment you open your door.